The circle gets smaller. Your circle gets smaller as you start to ascend, as you start to transform, as you start to shift the way you experience the world around you and the way you experience yourself in that world. Now, it can be frustrating for people, and I get it. And at the same time, it's very important to understand that from a frequency standpoint, from an energy standpoint, it's actually a good thing when you find yourself creating a smaller circle, a smaller group, a place where you feel a greater sense of safety and understanding, of empathy and compassion. And that is a give and take, that it exists between people, that you are no longer, excuse me, and responsible for the managing of a relationship, that you're not in charge, that there is a give and take. Now, people can be kind in the moment. They can be aware when something is going on for you. They say, oh, wow, I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope you're doing okay. Let me know if there's anything I can do. Saying all the things that show a sense of caring. But the difference is that, from my perspective, what you ultimately want to surround yourself with, and it will be a smaller group. I'm just telling you, it will be a smaller group. You want people who follow up, that it's not enough just in that moment to say, oh my God, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Is there anything I can do? But someone who checks back with you later that day, later that week, later that month. Hey, I was just thinking about you. I know you've been dealing with some stuff. I wanted to check in on you. That's empathy. See, empathy isn't in the moment. Empathy is an experience of life. It's the way you experience yourself and others in life because you genuinely care, and you therefore want to surround yourself with other people who care. Sometimes you may reach out to somebody, and this just happened to me the other day, where somebody came forward and they were talking about, oh, I got this going on, I got that going on, and they went into the specifics of their entire story of everything that was going on. And I understood that, and I got that was powerful for them. And they wanted someone to really be able to hear everything they were experiencing, which is fine. I'm available to do that for people. And I know that in the process of going through that and repeating every story, I know that I'm not the first person they've done this with. I know that this is a pattern of behavior. Why? Because there is something one gets from the retelling of a story. It's just they get it. They get the emotional charge. They get the chemical drop in the body. They get to experience a wide range of emotions in garnering sympathy, in garnering empathy, in understanding. And then sometimes people will come back to me, and I'm listening to them and going, God, I'm not here to judge. I'm not interested in judging what they have going on, the severity for them, because it's very real. There's an expression I heard years ago that says, my backache hurts me more than your backache hurts me. It's very real for them. But I also know that once we keep telling that story over and over again, we keep revisiting the past. We don't allow ourselves a place to go. Now, there is a reality, because I have a lot of stuff going on in my life too. So when someone was talking to me and said, well, what's going on with you? And I go, well, we're dealing with a significant number of wellness challenges within the family, and we're responding to it in some moments better than others and staying fully present to it. And they didn't know what to say. They wanted me to launch into the specifics of each story that's playing out in my life. My wellness, my wife's wellness, my kids, my mother-in-law. They wanted to hear all the stories. And I can tell them. I can tell them with the best of them. I could launch into them. And so they there was this silence, and they said, "Well, what does that mean? Like, it sounds like you're not really telling me what's going on." I said, "Well, for me," I said, "I don't really want to get into the retelling of all the stories. And if you want to hear a slice of it, I'll give you a slice, but I'm not going to go into all the details of it because it's just I'm aware that I'm no different than you. It will recharge me. It will allow me to revisit the past, to cry victim, to do all of those things." And I just gave a little bit of a snippet. And I realized that even in the doing of that, it was uncomfortable for me because I really didn't want to. But I also knew for them, it supported them in that moment, this sense of relatability. That I wasn't avoiding them, that I wasn't unwilling to share with them, but that I'm making a conscious choice to say less about stuff. Not as a spiritual bypass, not pretending that it doesn't exist, not pretending that I'm any better than anybody else, but really listening to what I call my inside game voice. My inside game voice. And you have one too. It's that pause that one takes. It's that pause that's taken to really assess, what path am I going to choose? Am I going to react or am I going to respond? Am I going to go into story or am I going to be more present to what's going on as an overarching framework without getting into the specifics, only because I know that I'm an addict to cortisol and adrenaline like anybody else is. I can easily go into fight or flight with the best of them. Not what I want to do, not how I want to live. So my expression was more about wellness. Sometimes people will post, they'll say things, prayer warriors needed. I'll see that sometimes on Instagram or Facebook. Prayer warriors needed. Please send prayers. And the person really doesn't want to go into the story, which I think is so cool. Just like, hey, could you send me? And even this morning, the two of my dear friends, I sent a message, hey, would appreciate any extended light you could send this way. Lots going on. And they were more than happy to, thrilled to. Just in the knowing of that I was experiencing things, that I was going through stuff. We all go through stuff. But the retelling of it means that I'm going to listen to what you have to say. And then I'm going to almost play this, well, like, it's almost like this this unspoken game of can you top this? Where you listen to what somebody has to say, you listen to all the things that are going on in their life, and then you sit there and go, well, you think that's bad. And then it's just bam, 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 bam. And then they come back, well, I didn't tell you everything. I didn't tell you this part because they also said this, and then they go into it. So now it's just like this one-upsmanship of who has more drama, who has more stuff going on. And it's really interesting because I don't get into the conversation of it with people. I just don't do it anymore. And my wife and I were talking about this the other day. We went out in the midst of everything that we have going on. We went out just to grab some coffee for her birthday, just to kind of get out and be together and date for a minute. we had about a half hour, an hour. And we were talking about, like, oh my God, like, this is so interesting how all this stuff, there's all this stuff that's happening around us. She goes, what do you think that's about? I said, well, one of the things that we're doing is we're getting ourselves, and this is something that's very common for people, we're getting ourselves caught up in the logistics of everything that's happening and needs to take place and needs to get done. So in an odd way, we're in the present moment of what needs to get done. But truth be told, because we're not really trusting the unfolding of it and the divine timing of it, and we're trying to fit it into a box, into a time by 2 o'clock, by 3 o'clock, by end of day, we're actually missing out on the component of this deeper level of trust. And so, like energy attracts like energy. So, if we're caught up in this logistics and we're, in essence, putting out fires, then the universe, God, Allah, Buddha, Jesus, whatever it is for you, for us, spirit, source, energy, is reflecting back to us only what it is that we're asking for. Oh, Mitch and Wendy are putting out fires. Okay, let's send them some more fires. And still, we kind of just said, okay, let's just put a halt to this. Let's get back to getting out of this fight or flight or freeze where we just want to check out. And let's just be in that place of knowing in the unknown, that we're fine, that we're okay, that everything is unfolding perfectly, even when it sucks, even when it hurts, even when it's challenging, even when it's difficult. And the more we allow it, and the more we focus on, well, wait a second, we have our inside game voice here that we're not using. We have that ability to pause, to reflect, to get clear on, well, what's really going on here? Like, what is it that we really want to accomplish here? See, if you're surrounded or experiencing, just as an example, if you're surrounded, or in our case, surrounded by what appear to be incompetence, of people not doing their job, of people not doing what they say they're going to do, the first place every time that I go to needs to be absolutely 100% where in my own life am I not showing up? Where in my own life am I not paying attention to things that need to be taken care of within me? If you're running this old story of if you want to do something right, you got to do it yourself. Now you're getting caught up in, like, I'm the only one, and look at all these things that are happening around me. This is crazy. This is nuts. It's like, well, hold on a second. Outer experience is a reflection of inner reality. That pause, that awareness, that willingness to look inside is first listening and using that inside game voice and say, okay, what's my responsibility in all this? What is my response ability in all of this versus reaction? Reaction's easy, man. We're all damn good at that. Do you believe what they did? You're not going to believe this one. Oh my God. How many times do you have to ask somebody? Oh, you just go, you can go a million different directions. And we all have those stories. We all have them. But I want to look at, okay, if all this is surrounding me, and all of this is around me, and all of this is within, somehow invited in by me, then what is necessary for me to do to look within, to utilize my inside game voice, to then utilize my inside game to take responsibility to what's being presented? It's amazing what happens when we get caught up in that versus getting caught up in the logistics. And I've told this to people before. I mean, listen, I'm a student of this too. So the fact that I'm catching myself and having this conversation with my wife, I have this conversation with clients. I've had it for years. We all can fall into this place, and from time to time, we all do. That's the work. That's the knowing that we're all one thought away from slipping and sliding again. From one experience of slipping and sliding again, of moving into our past, of moving into fight or flight, of reaction mode, of old self. and not responding to what's happening, but reacting to it. And listen, if I made a list of everything that I have going on right now, nobody would or could or would even think of faulting me for, not being expressive of some deeper anger or frustration, whatever. And from time to time, I do express it. Why? Because it's a feeling. It's not me. It's a thought. It's not me. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my feelings, and neither are you. But my ability to observe myself in that moment is that, well, hold on, Itch. Use your inside game voice. Use your inside game voice. What's going on here? What's really at play here? Don't get caught up in the story. What's the subtext of the story? What is the story reflecting back to you that you need to listen to? And it was great because my wife and I had each other to kind of bounce. Well, what do you think's going on? What's your experience in all this? And we were kind of going back and forth and just kind of sharing perspectives and going, oh, okay. And it was great because then it was like, okay, so what's the inside game plan? Okay, let's get back to trusting. Let's get back to trusting, even when it seems challenging. Relinquishing the sense of control. Take dominion over what we can and leave the rest to unfold. And even in the conversation of that, even in the expression of that, for her and for me, we found comfort. We found connection. We found intimacy. And we found a shared awareness of what's going on. And we're able to provide each other with that deeper level of feedback and understanding so that we could then come up with an inside game plan as to how we were going to proceed moving forward. Even laughter. Some things happened this morning that we just chose to laugh because it was funny, I guess. But it just let off so much energy that we've been holding on to. Just the laughter, just letting it all out. You talk about laughter as the best medicine. They're not lying. It's powerful. I mean, laughter like with tears coming down, streaming down your face. It was crazy and clearly necessary. So decide for yourself. You got to find that comfort for yourself. I'm just telling you that in the repetition of the story of everything that's going on in your life, of the need to keep retelling it, every time you retell it, you relive it. Your body, based on the chemicals that get dropped in with all the emotions, the elevated emotions that occur and the thoughts that are happening, the body feels like it's re-experiencing all of it again and again and again every time you tell the story. I just don't want to do it. I want to create a new story moving forward. I want to listen to use my inside game voice and say, okay, so what's really going on here? So I could look at it and say, you know what? I don't have to. I can resist the temptation to want to list all of the things that are going on around health and around this and around that and just say, hey, because they'll say, well, so what's going on with you? Well, we're having our share of wellness challenges for sure, 100%. Some moments look better than others in terms of how we're responding to it, but overall, I would say we're present to it and working with it. That feels good to say for me because that doesn't conjure up anything more than the absolute truth without going into story, without having a chemical drop in the body, without going into fight or flight, without getting into, can you top this with another person? There's no need to retell the story. Unless, of course, it's in a certain context. But the truth of the matter is, all of us know where we've been. And in some odd way, we find some level of comfort in retelling that as a reminder of where we've been. But truth be told, the purpose of the inside game is to help you clear and create a path moving forward. To leave the stories behind. to talk about your feelings, to talk about what you're thinking about, but not in a way that causes you and creates an opportunity for you to spiral, to get into the hardcore specifics of something, because then you're going down a slippery slope to your past. Developing an inside game plan. First, using your inside game voice to say, okay, so what's going on here? That's what my wife and I did. We were driving in the car. What do you think? Why do you think all this stuff is going on? What do you think is going on? We were pulling back. We were taking a break from it. In that moment, we were just present to the observation of what we were experiencing. Well, my inside game voice tells me this. And her inside game voice was telling her that. And we were finding the areas where we absolutely agreed upon. And some we didn't have to agree upon. That was just her experience or my experience. It's just an experience based on where we come from, based on our own individual understanding, separate and apart from each other. But from that inside game voice, developing an inside game plan. It's all about, so what do we want to do moving forward so that we can take responsibility to activate that to be able to move forward in a different way. And what happens when you do that, you shift the frequency, you change the dynamic, you change the direction of where you're going, and now all of a sudden things line up differently. The door is closed to the past. And even though it may knock from time to time, and even though at times you may let it in because of that inside game voice, you're able to say, I think you should go now. I'm Mitch Newman. We'll see you again next time.